Well, Mother Earth is looking like the top priority for President Obama. More than 100 of the world's leaders gathering in New York this week for the United Nations 64th Annual General Assembly. Talking green, though, won't just revolve around the effects of carbon emissions. Developing nations say wealthy nations should pay up for them to stop burning coal and cutting down costs. Nuclear arms peace talks between Israel and the Palestinians and financial regulation are also on the agenda. So where will they be? Specifically, more than 120 presidents and prime ministers at this General Assembly. With that many opinions, can they really accomplish anything? I'm joined in Washington, D.C. by Brett Schaefer of the Heritage Foundation. He's also the author of Conundrum, The Limits of the United Nations and the Search for Alternatives. Here in studio is John Bolton, the former U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, and tax attorney Roni Deutch. Good morning, everybody. Good to see you guys.
Good morning.
Brett, like the title, is that the same issue this week? Is it a conundrum, and do we accomplish anything?
Well, it's a mystery as to what is going to happen this week. We have a lot of discussions. We have a lot of movement. We have a lot of issues on the agenda. But what you typically see at these General Assembly kickoffs is a lot of talk, a lot of meetings, a lot of high-profile discussion, but very little substance behind them. In fact, where most of the substance happens is the off-record meetings that go on in the corridors or go on in the bilaterals on the edges of the overall UN General Assembly.
John, what does Obama need to accomplish here?
Well, I think the White House intention was to show the president sort of in charge of the whole world, dealing with climate change, the annual speech to the General Assembly, chairing the Security Council, the first time an American president has done that, then the G20 meeting in Pittsburgh. But I think there are some bumps in the road here because of the presence of Ahmadinejad, Gaddafi, and others that don't necessarily wish us well. So, as Brett said, this is a lot of show and hype, but very little real substance.
I said to you when you stepped up here, I said two big moves this week in the past 10 days. One was a move with China on tariffs on Chinese tires and imports. The other was a decision to remove the missile defense, something a lot of Americans and pundits have said, well, what do we get in return for that from Russia? How essential is support here on big issues pertaining with China and Russia, particularly as it relates to Iran?
Well, I think the president is increasingly proving he has a tin ear for governance when it comes to foreign and national security policy, and potentially launching trade disputes with China right before the president of China comes, and the missile defense move, which has rattled allies around the world, not just in Eastern and Central Europe, but in the Pacific as well, I think send out signals of weakness that are going to come back to haunt the president, haunt the United States, unfortunately.
Brett, are they signs of weakness, or are they backdoor conversations that we just don't know what the net results will be down the road?
Well, I think it does signal to our Eastern European allies that the United States is not going to stand up to Russia, that we're not going to be there to defend them from potential missile threats from Iran or other places that may develop down the road. I think it's a very bad call and something that this administration made an obvious mistake about in elevating their priorities of their relationship with Russia over our longstanding allies in Eastern Europe. And the trade issue, it's interesting because President Obama has made a big show about being a multilateralist, about extending the hand in friendship, about being a partner with other countries, and yet he turns around and on the trade agenda has signaled, if anything, to be a unilateralist, someone who is not embracing the global economic system.
Roni, one of the top conversations is climate change. And it's hard for Americans to digest anything other than health care reform at the moment or the financial crisis. I mean, what are we talking about here?
When you step back, Alexis, and think about saving the planet, there's a price tag associated with saving the planet. And all of us want to save the planet. We want the air to be good for your children and our children's children. But the issue is really, how much will it cost me? How much will it cost you? And that's something that I don't think is being honestly discussed to everyone that's part of this discussion. You and I know that in Britain, where they have a cap-and-trade system, the average family is paying $1,300 per year. I'm 100% certain, Alexis, that the cost to you and I will be more like $1,800 a year, or more. So I think the issues are very clear. Where do we get the money to pay for this, and what is the domino effect on workers? We know politicians love to tax polluters. We know that. But the problem is they're not really taxing polluters. They will be taxing workers, in my opinion, as a tax attorney, because they're going to have to pay lower wages because the polluters have to pay for the permits. So we've got lower wages, we've got less jobs, or worse, these people are going to pick up and move their companies where? To other countries that have no cap-and-trade system. India, China, Brazil. So I'm all for saving the planet, Alexis, but every country needs to do their part, not just America.